There's a moment you've replayed before, a sentence she said harmless on the surface, but it lingered longer than it should have. You laughed it off, changed the subject, told yourself you were reading too much into it. Men who stay silent in those moments don't lack confidence. They lack context, because here's what most people never explain clearly. When a woman wants things to escalate, she rarely announces it. She frames it softly, safely, in a way that lets her retreat if needed and advance if you understand. That's why some lines sound innocent but don't feel innocent. And men who notice patterns instead of reacting emotionally feel that difference immediately. They sense the tension but don't yet know how to name it. This isn't about decoding every word she says, it's about recognizing when a sentence is doing more than it appears. Because when desire is present, language becomes indirect on purpose. Let's start with the one almost everyone has heard and almost everyone has misunderstood. Phrase number one, what are you doing tonight? On paper, this sounds casual, but timing matters. When a woman asks about tonight, she's not making conversation. She's narrowing the window. If she were just being polite, she'd ask about your weekend, your plans sometime, something distant. Tonight is specific. It's her checking availability, and just as importantly, interest. This question is low risk for her. She doesn't have to reveal intention. She can always play it off. But for men who see patterns, the meaning is clear. She's opening space, not demanding anything, not pushing, just creating a door and watching whether you step toward it or away. Here's where perspective shifts for most people. She's not asking what you're doing, she's asking whether you're open to her being part of it. And if you respond like it's meaningless small talk, the moment collapses. Men who operate with quiet power don't overreact here. They don't joke it away. They don't flood the space with uncertainty. They answer calmly, confidently, because they understand something subtle. When a woman asks this, she's already imagining a version of the night that includes you. She's just waiting to see if you recognize the opening. And that same indirect framing shows up again, not in timing this time, but in emotion. This next line sounds gentle, almost disarming, which is exactly why most men misunderstand it. Phrase number two, I feel so safe around you. On the surface, this sounds emotional, supportive, almost platonic, and that's why many men mentally place it in the wrong category. But here's what people who study behavior, not words, understand. Safety is not the opposite of desire, it's the gateway to it. When a woman says she feels safe around you, she's not talking about logistics, not your driving, not your size, not your manners. She's describing how her nervous system behaves in your presence. Her guard lowers, her body relaxes, her mind stops scanning for threat. And that matters more than most men realize because physical closeness doesn't start with attraction, it starts with permission. This phrase is her saying, I trust the environment around you. And trust is what allows desire to move forward without friction. Notice when this line appears not in the middle of a group conversation, not casually in passing. It usually shows up late, after shared time, when space has already narrowed on a couch, in a car, during a pause. That context matters. Men who react emotionally hear this and freeze, afraid of being put into a safe guy box. Men who recognize patterns understand something deeper. She's telling you she feels secure enough to let things progress. She's not closing a door. She's checking whether you know how to open it without forcing it. And men with quiet power don't rush here. They don't escalate suddenly. They don't joke it away. They stay grounded because they know that once safety is established, desire doesn't need to shout. It just needs space. And sometimes that space is created with an invitation that sounds almost too obvious to miss, yet still gets ignored. This next phrase is where intent starts hiding in plain sight. It sounds casual, optional, almost throwaway, which is why so many men miss what it's really doing. Phrase number three, you should come over sometime. Listen carefully to the framing. Not, We should hang out. Not, let's do something, come over. That's not logistics, that's environment control. When a woman invites you into her space, she's removing variables, no audience, no interruptions, no external pressure. Privacy isn't accidental. Men who assume innocence here tell themselves it's about food, TV, or convenience. Men who notice patterns understand the shift. She's moving the interaction from public to personal, and timing matters again. If this invitation comes late or includes a comment like, I'll probably be alone, or follows playful tension, that's not coincidence, that's alignment. Here's the psychological layer most people overlook. Inviting someone over is safer than saying what she wants directly. It gives her control, plausible deniability, and exit if needed, but it also creates the conditions for escalation without having to ask for it. Men with quiet power don't act shocked. They don't over-celebrate. They don't pretend. They don't understand. They accept the invitation calmly because they know something important. When a woman offers her space, she's offering possibility, not obligation, not pressure, just opportunity. And how you respond tells her whether you're someone who can move forward without forcing momentum. This same pattern appears again with an invitation that sounds even more innocent and is even more misunderstood. This next phrase has survived for decades for one reason. It works because it hides intention behind routine. Phrase number 4. Do you want to watch a movie at my place? On the surface, this sounds ordinary, comfortable, loafer, almost boring, and that's exactly why it slips past most men's awareness. Because this invitation isn't about the movie, it's about structure, late hours, low lights, a shared couch, no urgency to talk. Everything about this setup reduces distance without announcing why. Men who take words literally focus on the film. Men who notice patterns focus on the environment being created. A private space where silence is normal, where closeness doesn't need explanation, where escalation can happen naturally or not at all. And that or not at all part matters. This phrasing gives her safety. If nothing happens, it was just a movie. If something does, it wasn't rushed or forced. That's the psychological brilliance of it. Here's the uncomfortable reframe most people avoid. If she wanted only conversation, there are 100 public places for that. She chose her place for a reason. Men with quiet power don't point this out. They don't joke about it. They don't make it awkward. They understand the invitation isn't a demand, it's an opening. And they respond with the same calm energy the moment requires, because how you handle this moment tells her something critical, whether you're capable of reading intent without needing it spelled out. And sometimes she tests that ability in a more playful way with a line that sounds like a warning but isn't. This next phrase sounds like a joke, a half smile, a throwaway comment, but it's doing something very specific. Phrase number 5, you're trouble, aren't you? When a woman says this, she isn't warning herself. She's testing you. This line usually appears after you tease her, after you push back, playfully, after you don't immediately explain yourself. Men who stay silent and safe hear this as a joke and move on. Men who notice patterns hear the subtext. I feel something pulling me out of control, and I'm curious if you'll lead. Calling you trouble is a way to externalize tension. She's naming the feeling without owning it. It lets her flirt without committing, challenge without risk, signal interest while maintaining control. Pay attention to how it's delivered, the smirk, the tone, the way she leans in slightly when she says it. This isn't disapproval. It's permission wrapped in play. Men with quiet power don't deny it. They don't reassure. They don't retreat. They accept the frame calmly because they understand something subtle. She's not asking if you're trouble. She's asking whether you know how to handle it, and how you respond here shapes what comes next. Because once she starts laughing more easily, leaning in a little closer, staying engaged longer than she planned, she may say something that sounds like a compliment, but it's doing more than that. This next phrase sounds like praise, light, playful, almost observational, but it's doing something far more revealing. Phrase number 6. Do you always make women laugh like this? This isn't just about humor, it's about effect. When a woman points out how much you make her laugh, she's not evaluating your jokes. She's noticing what's happening inside her. Laughter lowers defenses, it relaxes the body, it creates rhythm and ease. And when she calls it out, she's acknowledging that you're influencing her emotional state. Men who miss the signal downplay it, brush it off, turn self-deprecating. Men who recognize patterns understand the shift. She's drawing attention to the dynamic between you. Especially pay attention to the timing. If she says this while touching your arm, while leaning in, while holding eye contact, just a beat longer than usual, that's not a random comment. That's her testing whether you'll stay present or retreat into neutrality. Here's the quiet reframe most men never make. She's not asking about other women. She's anchoring the experience to herself. She's noticing that you're creating a feeling she wants to continue. Men with quiet power don't explain themselves here. They don't turn it into a performance review. They let the moment sit because they understand something simple and rare. When a woman points out your effect on her, she's already leaning forward emotionally. And when emotional momentum builds long enough, she may say something that sounds like hesitation, but is actually the opposite. This last phrase is the one that changes everything because it sounds like hesitation, but it's actually commitment. Phrase number 7, I don't usually do this. When a woman says this, she's not pulling back, she's crossing a line. This phrase only appears when something internal has already been decided. It's her acknowledging risk and choosing it anyway. Men who misread this think they're being warned that she's unsure that they should slow everything down. Men who notice patterns understand what's really happening. She's telling you she's breaking her own rules, and people don't break rules for comfort, they break them for desire. This line often shows up right before escalation. An invitation, a bold move, a moment she didn't plan to reach but did. It's her way of preserving identity while still moving forward. If it works out, she followed her instinct. If it doesn't, she can say it just happened. That's not weakness. That's emotional intelligence protecting vulnerability. Men with quiet power don't interrogate this moment. They don't slow it down out of fear. They don't question her certainty. They stay calm because they understand something critical. When a IB woman says, I don't usually do this, what she's really saying is, I trust my feeling right now. And by this point, every signal has already aligned. The timing, the invitations, the safety, the play, the emotional pull. Nothing was random, it was layered, and once you see how these phrases work, not as words, but as movements, you stop guessing, you stop replaying conversations later, you stop needing things spelled out, because men who recognize patterns don't chase clarity. They operate from it. And once you understand this, you don't just hear her differently, you move differently.